Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Cody Curry here, and thanks for tuning in. Guys, I'd like to introduce you to a brand new docu-series on the channel. This is a series where we'll focus exclusively on combat veterans of America's greatest wars to help share and preserve their stories. Our very first guest of the series, Corporal Bill Hancock Jr. of Ross, Ohio. Bill served with the United States Marine Corps, 5th Marine Division, 2nd Battalion from 1966 to 1969 during the peak years of the Vietnam War. Bill was a rifleman and hotel company, is a combat veteran with 2 Purple Hearts. I was blessed for this opportunity to interview the story Bill and so many others like him hold. Stories like Bill's are a priceless piece of American history, and I feel incredibly honored and humbled to have played a small part in immortalizing that.
I was with H Company, 2nd Battalion, 26 Marines. I'm from downtown Cincinnati. I was born and raised at 8th and State. And so I lived there until I was 14 years old, and then we moved out to Coleraine. And I went to I started in Coleraine High School in 1962. And worked the whole time. Worked right next to the school, so I'd get off of school, jump the fence, go to work for Outline Rents.
Yeah.
And my dad said, "You want a car when you're 16?" I went, "Yeah." Thought he was going to buy me one. He said, "No, I got you a job."
Yeah.
At that time, you know, when I first started, we were doing circuses and carnivals, putting up tents and stuff, doing debutante parties and all that kind of stuff. But then after I got out of the Marine Corps, I was married. I got married while I was in. And then 1969, when I got out, drove home. A week later, I was working for Procter & Gamble. And I just continued working for them for 32 years. I worked in a laboratory for a while, and then I went to Winton Hill Technical Center, and I worked designing packaging for food products like Pringles potato chips.
Yeah.
Folgers coffee and Crisco and Crisco oil and everything. And worked researching and developing packaging.
Yeah.
Well, my family didn't have any money. We were rather poor kids. Matter of fact, we never even had it. There was never even an inside toilet in our house in Cincinnati until I was like 12 years old. So we had an outhouse until then. We lived right in downtown.
Yeah. That's funny.
We had indoor plumbing. We didn't have any hot water or anything. Just Mom had to heat all the water on the stove.
Yeah.
But didn't have a bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, we bathed in a big galvanized steel tub.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mom would heat the water on the stove, and
Up until you were 12?
up until I was about 12. Then we finally got a bathroom.
Got into the 20th
They
century.
tore out mine and my brother's closet, and they put a bathroom in.
That's a sacrifice you're willing to make, I guess.
Oh yeah, heck yeah. I really didn't know anything about Vietnam until 1966. You know, when I enlisted later on after I heard about it.
What kind of things did you hear about it?
Well, you hear it on the news. There was so much on it about the news at that time. And so me and 12 other guys were up at Snows Lake and having a couple of illegal beverages because none of us were old enough. We decided, hey, we need to get into this. So we ended up all of us enlisted in the Marine Corps and shipped out to San Diego, to MCRD San Diego boot camp.
All friends you went to school with?
Well, there was 13 of us all together went. Now, my best friend wasn't with us at the time. After he found out he had moved to Springfield, Ohio, because his dad's job moved up there. Well, after he found out I enlisted, then he came down and enlisted so he could go and whip me on the buddy plan. But yeah, we all all went out there together. Of course, that buddy plan thing only works till you get out of training.
Okay.
You know, and then everybody's on their own.
So, you guys all signed up. You guys weren't drafted or anything.
No, we all enlisted.
Yeah.
Yeah, we enlisted. It was 3 months before our graduation, but we enlisted on what they call the 90-day delay plan, so that we could graduate from high school and then go straight into the Marine Corps.
So the Marine Corps was your obvious choice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There was no other consideration. Navy.
No. My dad was in the Navy and stuff. Now he wanted me to go in the Navy, but no, I had no desire to do that.
Right.
I ended up spending more time on ship than most sailors, but
Yeah.
I didn't have any desire to join the Navy.
What drew you to the Marine Corps versus the Army, other branches? Because I mean,
John Wayne, Sans Iwo Jima.
yeah, no kidding. You signed up. You didn't go to the Marine Corps. That was your choice.
Yeah.
No other option for you. Did you get to choose your MOS, your job?
No. Well, I thought I was going to, since I had worked at this place and I drove trucks all the time, I thought maybe I'd be in motor transport or something like that, driving trucks. No, they thought, we went to boot camp, there was 98 of us. 96 of us were infantrymen going to Vietnam. The other two, one guy was a musician, he went to 8th and I to be in the Marine Corps band, and the other guy became a cook.
Yeah. Well, we do need cooks, there's no doubt about that.
Well, not really, because we cooked everything ourselves except for at base camp.
Right, I guess in your sea rations too.
Sea rations, that's all we ate over there, except for very few times we would get back to a base camp where we could be.
Yeah.
And then they'd have some hot food for us, but that probably only happened a handful of times the whole time I was in Vietnam.
Right. Yeah, if you're out in the field a lot, you're not really making too many fires and cooking.
No, you carry your 2 sea ration meals a day with you, and that's what you eat. That's why I can't cook to this day. Never could.
So your basic experience, so I'm assuming you went to Paris Island or?
No, I went to San Diego.
Oh, okay, yeah. You mentioned that.
Yeah, well, at that time, I mean, it used to be that everybody was east of the Mississippi went to Paris Island, everybody was west, went to San Diego. Well, at that time, they were needing so many guys because of the war going on, that just wherever they had an opening, that's where they sent you. So they put all of us on a plane and flew us out to San Diego because there was openings out there. So stayed out there, did all our training. Got there in August of '66. Trained out there until March of '67, and then lucky me, they put me aboard ship with 3,000 other guys that were replacements, and on my birthday they shipped me to Vietnam.
19th birthday?
19th birthday. Shipped
birthday.
me to Vietnam. Happy birthday to you. Have a nice trip.
Your basic training experience, what was that like? Going in the 60s has to be drastically different than, going through today in 2022.
Well, yeah, they were. I've been down to Paris Island. I've been to San Diego boot camp, MCRD, in the last number of years. They can't even cuss at them or do anything anymore. Heck, they could take you out and beat you if they wanted to back in them days. In my day.
Did you get beat?
Yeah, well, a couple of times. I wouldn't say. I mean, I don't mean thoroughly beat up like I needed medical attention or anything like that. But yeah, they didn't mind whacking you every once in a while.
Keep you in line.
Keep in line. Help strengthen their lessons. Yeah, I went to San Diego was boot camp, and then they transferred us to up between San Diego and Los Angeles is Camp Pendleton, which is the largest Marine Corps base, and so that's where we did all our training, our regular infantry training and survival training, everything else.
Survival training? Tell me about that.
Oh, it was they just take you out the mountains out there and drop you off, and you had to find your way back.
No GPS or anything?
No food, no nothing. You get lost, you can't find your way back, you just don't eat.
Yeah.
What you could see on the news,
Yeah.
And we thought, well, all of our fathers were World War II veterans and, Korean War veterans and stuff. So, yeah, we thought, this is what we ought to do.
So, you knew from the beginning that you wanted to go to Vietnam, whether it was an infantry role, you mentioned even driving trucks. That's where you wanted to be.
Yeah, I didn't know, but I knew as soon as they started yelling at me when I got off of that bus at boot camp that I had screwed up. But
19th birthday, they shipped you out. How long was the ride over?
It took about a week and a half, 2 weeks, because we stopped at Okinawa, stopped at Japan, and then headed on into Vietnam.
How was the ride over?
It was fine. Yep, we were on it was actually a civilian liner that had been changed over for troop transport. And, they took out all the nice bedrooms and stuff and just put up a bunch of bunk beds and things. Packed us in there. 3,000 of us on it.
What was your first impressions upon arrival?
Well, when we arrived, we were the ship was sitting out in Da Nang Harbor. And we could see all the tracer rounds going off and the flares and hear the bombing and, shell fire and stuff. So it was a little scary. But next, after we stayed out there in the harbor for a day and a half or something like that, and then they took us by Mike boat, these them landing craft, into the dock in Da Nang. And of course, we each got assigned to where we were going. And I was the only guy assigned to the company I was going with. So it was like, I didn't know a soul when I got there or anything. All the rest of the guys. My best friend, his name was David Hamilton. And he got assigned. Of course, he was HAM, so they went by your last name as when they assign you, how many guys they assign wherever. So they assigned him. Then when they got to me, they gave me a different. I went, well, can I go with him? And they went, no, you can't. You've already got your assignment. You just get on that bus over there, and they'll take you to where you're going. So it was like a green old school bus with wire on the windows and stuff. So they couldn't throw hand grenades or something in there if they were. Right. And they drove me up to this hill, and I'm like, holy Christ, we're out in the middle of no place. Well, first of all, I was scared shitless. I thought, well, they're taking me out here, and they didn't even give me a gun. What the hell's up with this?
So you didn't have a gun upon arrival?
No,
okay.
You didn't get it. You didn't get issued a weapon until I got to where my company was. But I thought, well, they got these screens on there in case they're like trying to throw grenades in here or something. I think I should have a gun. Had
they told you much about what to expect in Vietnam before arrival?
As much as they could, because our drill instructors and everything, they were all veterans. They had all been to Vietnam already. They were all veterans, but as much as they could. But of course, you can't explain what it's really like. Well, we knew they weren't they had told us how they had invaded and they weren't treating the South Vietnamese very well. So I don't know. I felt good about going because I thought we were helping these people. And as it turned out, we were, because they just go in and just grab all the boys and stuff up. All of a sudden they're 12 years old, they're in the Army. And take all the kids away, and farmers didn't have their sons to help them farm, and the NVA would come down the trail and they'd take all the food and everything away from all the farmers, all the rice and stuff. So we used to have to go out pretty often, and they would have what they call markets where they bring their rice and ducks and whatever they raised into the market. Well, we would guard their markets. We would go out and set a perimeter up around their markets a lot of times, so that the North Vietnamese wouldn't come in there and take all their stuff.
Right.
And they'd have food for their families. It was very interesting. Felt very sorry for those people that they had to live like that.
Why did you think that the NVA and Viet Cong were taking over South Vietnam? And pillaging these. Just
communism. That's what I thought. That's what we were all thinking. Of course, there was ever since World War II, there was the Cold War and all that stuff going on with all the communists. And So they were just trying to turn the South Vietnamese into communists. I was a replacement, yeah, for wounded they had lost and stuff. So yeah, I spent at the company. The company headquarters was right outside Da Nang on a hill, Hill 190, and the actual company was out in the field on an operation, and just the headquarters group was back on the hill. And so I stayed there for a few days. They gave me all my equipment, my rifle and everything else. And we guarded that perimeter for a few days. And then finally they called me and said, all right, we want you to get out here in formation. We're going to fly out to the company with the resupply we're sending out. Okay. Well, I get out there, I'm carrying my M14, which is the rifle we had at the time. And they said, you're not going to carry that. Give that to the clerk there. Clerk gave me an M79 40 millimeter grenade launcher, which is a breakdown. You put one round in it, you break down like an old shotgun. Fire one round and, then have to break it down and take that round out, that casing out, and load another one. I'm thinking, I only ever fired this thing one time in training. And I didn't hit what I was aiming at then. What the heck am I going to do with that? They gave me that and a 45 caliber pistol. Oh, what the hell am I going to do with that? So anyway, that's what I carried out there, a bag with 40 of the 40 millimeter rounds in it, and this little short M79 grenade launcher and a 45 pistol. And I'm thinking, this don't seem like a very good thing to have out there. I know it's good to have grenades and stuff, but what if they're running into your hole? You pull out that pistol, you only got 7 shots in that thing. I like a rifle that had like 20 rounds in the magazine and things. And I could fire it a little farther. I'd rather shoot them far away than have to wait until they get within 10 feet to hit them with this 45. You ever tried to fire a 45? It's very hard to hit anything with it. And that's what the instructors at the rifle range, when we were training, taught us. Right. The drill instructor would come up, teach us how to fire this rifle. You better learn how to use this thing. He said, you don't want to be using that bayonet. You want to shoot them when they're ways away.
So you carried the M79 at first. Now, did you, when you got your M14, you didn't have it very long?
I just had it while we were on the hill. But when we got out in the field, when I got in the field with the company, we were sweeping these rice paddies and things. And we started getting fire from a little village up in front of us. So the platoon sergeant yelled, M79 man, get up here. He goes, hit that hut right there. The hut was maybe 100 yards away. I fired at the damn thing 20 times. I never hit it once. He come crawling back over and said, son, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to hit that hut. He said, well, you ain't hit it yet. I said, well, if they ran out the back, I might have got a couple.
So you were shooting over top of it?
I was over the top of it. I was short of it. It was everywhere because he had to angle that thing just right,
Right.
in order to fire it. You lobbed them in there. So anyway, he said, he called this Chico Ramirez over and he said, Ramirez, give him that M14 of yours and you take that M79. He says, he said, the only way he's going to kill a VC with that thing is to turn it around and beat him with it. Well, they had different kinds of rounds. They had flechette rounds and stuff like that, but high explosive was all they had when I had it, when we first got there.
Was it effective at all, the actual burst of the rounds?
Yes. If for somebody who knew how to use the doggone thing, it was. Not for me. Ramirez was very good with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't worth a damn.
So obviously you preferred the M14.
Oh yeah. I like something. I even told that platoon sergeant, I said, I know how to use this at least.
Yeah.
Me and that platoon sergeant, he was a Korean War veteran. We became very close friends while I was over there after that.
What was his name?
Sergeant O'Keefe. I can picture him over here. Ugliest, skinniest man in the world.
Yeah.
Loved him to death. Yeah, we never had any camo. Marine Corps didn't have any camo uniforms when I was over in Vietnam. The Army had them, but we didn't.
Yeah. You carried the M14. How long did you get to carry that for until you were issued your M16?
Let's see. Got the M16s in April of 1967, so about a month.
About a month. I mean, did you get the chance to use it in a firefight?
M16?
The M14.
M14, I fired it a few times, yeah.
Yeah. What was your impression of the M14, having used that?
I liked the M14. The M16, of course, the M16 when we first got it didn't work very well. So I like the M14 real well.
Yeah.
You don't want something that don't work.
Tell us about the issues you had with your M16.
Well, the M16 they had changed the powder in the ammunition from a ball powder to a stick powder, and it burned slower, so it heated the casing up. Well, the casing would expand in the chamber, and it would get stuck. So when the ejector went to pull it on the lip of the casing, it would just rip the lip off of it, and it wouldn't eject the casing. You had to take a rod and jam it down there to get that casing out of the chamber. Well, it was like having a muzzle loader. We didn't need that. A 20-round magazine, it'd take an hour and a half to fire 20 rounds for crying out loud doing all that.
Yeah.
Because when it got stuck in the chamber, then it tried to slam the next round over, into the chamber. Well, it'd just jam up over the top of the casing, and, it was jammed in there already. It's And then the M14, you could drop that in the mud or anything, it'd still work. Didn't have to worry about it. M16 get a little dust in it, it wasn't worth a damn. Parts didn't work right. And it was nice and light to carry, a little shorter, so when you were going through the jungle, it didn't get caught on everything like the M14 did.
Right.
But I think all of the guys like the M14 better, but after a while, when they've got the work done on the 16s, it turned out to be all right. You didn't hear that anymore then.
What did you feel about the cartridge difference between the 7.62 NATO and the 5.56?
Yeah, it wasn't. I really didn't think too much about it, to tell you the truth. But the NVA had the AK-47. That was also 7.62, but it was a different round. Their 7.62 was only maybe that long. Ours was maybe that long.
So there wasn't much buzz about the change of actual cartridge. It was just the change of gun.
Yeah. And actually, at that time it was .223 caliber. We had is what we called it, but it was a lot lighter carrying them than all that ammo. We had to carry being a rifleman, we carried spare belts of M60 ammunition, which was all 7.62 also. And all the other stuff we had to carry, rocket rounds and mortar rounds and all that other junk. We carried 80 and 90 pounds of gear all 24 hours a day over there.
Tell me about your typical loadout. You mentioned 80, 90 pounds. What your web gear between your rifle, personal effects. Tell us a little about it.
Well, we had a web belt, of course, had a canteen, which attached canteens to, had ammo pouches that you carried, and the flak jacket probably weighed about 14, 15 pounds.
Oh, really?
And a steel pot weighed some, and we normally carried 500 rounds of ammo, and I carried mostly magazines, but I still carried extra ammo in your pack. And hand grenades and maybe smoke grenades or something. It all depended on what you had to carry. You were assigned on what you had to carry. Each guy had to carry. But you had to load. That was for sure.
Yeah.
Every single day. You couldn't wait to take a break and get that pack off.
Yeah.
And it being, a lot of times it was 110, 115 degrees over there. It was so hot, you wade through a stream and you get 50 yards on the other side of it, you were dried already. We would just set up perimeters. Most of the time when we went out, Fubai was our base where the 3rd Marine Division was at. It was a big base. Now we would go out and for the company, they would set up the headquarters group, and they would have one of our platoons would act as security for the headquarters group, and then the other 2 platoons would do ambushes or patrols or whatever, and stay out all night and stuff. But so 2 out of 3 nights you only got to sleep, or 2 out of 3 nights you were out in the field constantly, and you just laid down on the ground and went to sleep or whatever. And then, maybe on the 3rd night you'd get to be in a perimeter. You'd still be sleeping on the ground, but you at least just stayed in one place. Didn't have to go walking all over. We were on outside of the perimeter. Of course, all the officers and the corpsmen and radio operators and all that stuff were on the inside of the perimeter.
I'm sure there isn't a typical one because every day was different, but if you had to describe what your typical mission patrol would be, well, give me a rundown of something like that.
Well, like
in the morning.
when you were set up for an evening, no matter where, you were on 100% watch until midnight, and then at 6 a.m. you were back on 100% watch again. So every other night, maybe, you got 4 hours sleep. And the other night, you got 2 hours sleep. So then you get up, and as soon as the sun came up, you had a patrol to do or whatever. And you'd just go out and start patrolling all through an area and seeing what you could find. Trying to get in some trouble. They loved when you got in trouble. The people in the rear, the officers and stuff, because they wanted you to get in trouble so then they could call in somebody else and catch a whole bunch of them at one time,
Yeah.
We usually when you were on patrol or something, you only ran into them 1 or 2 at a time.
1 or 2 total enemies?
Yeah. You would maybe, find 1 or 2 of their guys that were spying on you or something, but usually that's what you find. Every once in a while you'd walk into an ambush of a squad, maybe 10 or 12, 13 of them. Usually because they all had patrols out and doing the same thing we were doing. They had headquarters out and they'd send patrols out. Normally who we ran into was one of their patrols. Or we'd walk through one of their ambushes just like they'd walk through one of our ambushes. Which was a lot better when they walked through our ambushes. My first time was when I had that M79.
Yeah.
So I remember it vividly.
Yeah.
It was like there was rounds going off. Of course, the rounds were hitting in the rice paddy, which are full of water and stuff. So you can see every round that's hitting in the rice paddy and that. It's like they got mortars shooting at us and everything, but of course they're not doing anything because they're hitting in the mud and ain't hurting anything. We were sweeping to go toward this village to check and see if there was any Viet Cong or that in there. Well, when we got through the first rice paddy, and we were still 100 yards away from the village, well, they started shooting at us because we were all on line. But yeah, it was like, holy shit, is it like this every day? It was my first day here.
Your first day was pretty eventful.
Yeah, first day here. Well, of course, now these were some really bad, these were just like some civilian troops or something because they weren't very good shots. I think they fired at us for like 4 days and I don't think they hit anybody. They would come, as a matter of fact, there was like a river that was running alongside of this rice paddy. Well, they'd come out on the other side of the river, set up their machine gun on the bank and start shooting at us over there, but they still wasn't hitting anybody.
What kind of weapons did the enemy typically have? I know you mentioned mortars and stuff, but what was the typical loadout of your enemy? They
had RPGs, they had AK-47s, machine guns, what's they called RPDs. Yeah, they had all kinds of things. Chinese communist hand grenades, and which are funny. This friend of mine, he found some of them that in a hooch one time, and he thought they were like to crush rice with, like a mortar and pestle. Platoon sergeant said, "Son, pass that over to me." He passed it over. He took the cap off the bottom of it, pulled this little string out. He said, "If you pull this little string, it's going to blow everybody else up in this truck."
When you're on patrol, describe to me what would typically happen, how events would transpire.
We'd walk along a trail, and maybe they'd snipe at us or whatever, and maybe a couple of them would start shooting, and we'd start shooting, and we'd start heading for them to run them off. They usually took off after because our fire superiority was much more than theirs. So once our guns started out, our machine guns and everybody else started opening up, these VC farmers and stuff would just head out. Their job was just us come out and fire their 3 or 4 rounds, whatever they gave them, and shoot at us, and then go back to tend their farms. Yeah, the NBA were regular. The NBA were trained just like we were, and they were very good at what they did.
Yeah,
and they weren't afraid to fight. They didn't run away. They stayed there.
Yeah. Describe like the NVA to me, and to the viewers. What did you think of the NVA?
Thought they were all, of course, they were muscular because they carried everything with them all the way from down the Ho Chi Minh Trail and all that, march for miles with tons and tons of gear on them and things. And like I said, they weren't very afraid. Mm-hmm. If you got in a fight with them, they were going to stay there and fight with you. Mm-hmm. So the worst we ever had was in May of 1967. They set us up to the DMZ because the NVA were attacking Cantillon Fire Base up there, which we had. There was a battalion of Marines were stationed on this hill. They called it the Hill of Angels, Cantillon. And so they sent us up to clear out the DMZ, run the NVA out of there. Well, they weren't too easy to move. So we were up there for 8 days, and it was just terrible. Well, we started out the 8 days with 160 guys in the company, and we ended with 27. We had 14 killed and 89 wounded in 1 day. And we had to assault this hill, and there was like a battalion and 450 NVA up there. And there was 130 of us made the final assault up there and just got the shit beat out of us. And they had to bring in another. We assaulted the hill 3 times, never got there. So went back down the hill, stayed overnight at the base. They sent in another company to help us the next day, and we finally went up and took the hill. We had to leave a couple of our dead up on the hill, so we went back up and got them. But we brought them all back. We couldn't even do anything. We couldn't get helicopters in there. I kept shooting helicopters down whenever we bring one into medevac or something. So they had to bring tanks up. We had to load them on tanks, and then the tanks drove them back to safety. That was an amazing. It was a miracle. I didn't ever think. I couldn't even remember most of that day. I don't know what happened. I just went blank. I looked around, and everyone I could see was laying on the ground shot. And I was basically the only one shooting back, and I thought, hell, If they wanted to, they could just walk down here and take my ass out, and there's not a damn thing I can do about it. But finally, when I was, next thing I remembered, I was at the bottom of the hill and was helping a couple of the other guys load some wounded and dead onto the tanks to be taken back. And my platoon sergeant come up to me, he goes, "Son," he says, "you know, we have to go back up that hill." I said, "I have no idea how the hell I got down here to begin with. Why would I want to go back up there?" He said, "Well, I'm going up there. Are you coming with me?" I went, "Yeah, I guess I am." He was a hellion. He wasn't afraid of nothing.
Was that O'Keefe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My platoon sergeant said, "If you shoot one of them once, shoot them twice. You don't want to be walking past them, and then they all of a sudden get up and shoot you in the back." He said, "If you shot them once, that bullet's not worth that much. Shoot them again."
So you found yourself, shooting them more than once.
Oh yeah. Until I knew they weren't going to get up and move around and be throwing grenades or shooting or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was old Korean War veteran. Yeah, if you shoot them once, they're worth shooting. They were worth shooting once, or worth shooting again.
Yeah.
That was some good advice.
Yeah.
And him telling me to give that damn M79 to Ramirez, that was some good advice. Yeah, I knew how to use that. I can fire it and hit what I wanted to with that M16.
Yeah.
I had trained for weeks on that thing in training, infantry training, on the rifle range. But yeah, an M79 they just took out. Here, they give you one round, you fired it. I think they had an old blown up tank or something put out there somewhere. Yeah, aim at that tank. Hell, I didn't even get nowhere near it then. With the one round they gave me, it's like, well, this ain't worth a damn. If I can't hit what I'm going to aim at, I'm going. You're going to just run up to me and shoot me, for Christ's sakes. Yeah, when they would be shooting at us and stuff, he'd be walking around behind. "We need more fire over here. We need more fire." He's walking around. I'm freaking trying to get my buttons underground.
And you mentioned he was also a Korean War veteran, so he was a 2-war.
Yeah. Yeah, he had been Chosin. He was a Chosin Reservoir veteran, Korean War. He just told me what a screw up I was. He said, "Hancock, you're a screw up." Of course, every time he volunteered me for every damn thing that went on. Though, he would walk past 15 other guys and come back. "Hancock, I got an assignment for you." I'm going, "What about all them guys? What'd you work past them for?" Well, he was the one. He had gotten there. The company had gotten over there in August of '66, and he came over with the original company. So he was rotating home before I was, and he was rotating home in September of '67. So I was on the perimeter when he comes walking out. He says, "Hancock, they're sending me home. Give me your address." I said, "What do you want my address for?" He says, "I'm going to go see your parents." I went, "You're not going to do that." He said, "Yeah, I am. Give me your address." So I gave him my address. He starts walking away, turns around, he comes walking back. He said, "Give me your girlfriend's address too." He said, I can use a good piece of ass when I get to Cincinnati.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I said, "Well, just get the hell out of here." 8 days it lasted.
8 days.
Yeah. Lasted from May the 17th to May the 25th.
What was the hill called?
117 was the hill we were taking. All the hills were just named after the height in meters. So it was just a little hill, but there was a battalion of NBA camped on top of it and dug in. I mean, all that had been going on that operation, and everybody had taken an ass. Everybody who was in the lead elements had taken an ass whooping during that 8 days at some time. And when that it was the last day of the operation, and we were the one that was the lead element then, so we knew our time had come. But we had a guy, we caught a bunch of NVA out in the open, and he hit a law and fired it and hit an NVA and just like vaporized him.
Yeah.
The NVA, there was so many of them in the DMZ that were hitting that we just had, eventually we were going to stumble in. If they were moving whole units, we were eventually going to stumble into each other at some time. Usually, normally when we saw them, we were on an ambush or something, and you wouldn't actually see them, but you just see their shadows passing. We'd just go out and lay alongside of a trail somewhere, and then they'd come walking along, and we'd just see their shadows passing, and then we'd hit them. So you'd let them go out. If you were laying in ambush, if they were coming this way, all these guys would let them go past till they got to the other end, and the guys on that end would open up on them, and then they'd turn around and come running back, and everybody else got to shoot at them then. They always went back the same way they came because they thought they came that way. It was pretty safe. Well, we waited for that. Typically, it was just a line, We did set up L-shaped ambushes every once in a while, but that was if we were like guarding a perimeter or somewhere where we had, because you didn't want a few guys, because they could come walking up from anywhere. So you didn't want to have like 10 guys over here and 3 over there, and NBA walk up behind 3 of them. So we usually just were in a straight line along the trail, get maybe 10 yards apart or something like that. They were just dirt trails about that wide normally. Like trails that they would walk their water buffalo out on or something like that, to go out and plow their fields. You lay out there in the dark, and if you lay out there long enough and you stare at something, it'll start moving. Even if it's a tree, it'll start moving. You'll get, why that tree over there? No. Where's
Playing tricks on your eyes?
Playing tricks on your eyes after a while.
How far would you be away from the actual enemy when you would engage on these ambushes?
I would say normally not more than from here to that desk.
So you would say probably 12, 15 yards.
Yeah. That would be the normal. It got closer sometimes, but normally you'd get far enough back off the trail where they couldn't see where because you had to break off when you break off the trail, a lot of times you'd leave hints because the brush you'd have to break through to get back where you could set up. Yeah, we were always doing, of course, we were always out looking for it. Our job was to find them. The generals and that wanted us to go out and find them so that we could find where a group of them was, then they could shell them or call in air power or call in more troops to cut them off or everything. They wanted a body count. So the more we could find, the better they liked it. Now, we didn't like it that much, but my portion of caisson was just mostly getting shelled. We didn't have any. While I was at caisson, I wasn't involved in any, rifle to rifle battles with any NVA troops. We fired at them a long ways away because they were trying to dig trenches up to our lines, to get in. But mainly it was just airstrikes, artillery. They shelled us all the time. Every day they shelled us. And you could tell when they got resupplied because you might get 1,200 rounds a day of artillery fire and mortars and stuff in the combat base. That got a little nerve-wracking. We dug some major fortifications into the ground. We had me and a couple of guys that I was with had dug this hole, and it had 3 layers going down just in case they broke into the, and then had some turns, so that if they broke it through the wire or something and came in through a grenade or something down there, it'd blow, but it wouldn't blow right where you were at. You could run around the corner, you'd get the concussion, but Matter of fact, I got kind of a picture of one of my technicians that. And he said, he had just walked off a little bit because he heard something. He comes walking back, he was white as a ghost. He said, "There's a tiger over there." I went, "I ain't going to see it." I'm not going to see it.
Was that's not something that happened very often?
No. That was the only time I know of that.
Yeah.
Tiger, now snakes and anacondas and monkeys and rock apes and shit like that. Yeah, we saw those all the time. But no, we actually found elephant footprints up in the DMZ while we were up there, where they were using elephants the NBA were using elephants to load gear down.
Yeah.
It's like, no. Elephants got their sex organs in their feet. If they step on you, you're fucked. Yeah, there was one buddy of mine, and my wife's met him. He comes to several reunions, but it's like we called him Chico Ramirez. I told you about him. He's the one that gave that insane 9-2. He was like the jokester. He kept everybody freaking going. He always was joking about something. One of the first nights of that operation I was telling you about, we were off for 8 days. They put me and another guy out in the middle of a dried out rice paddy. And when it got dark, they brought these 4 Ontoses up behind our position.
Ontos?
Ontos, it's like a little small tank, only it's got 6 106 millimeter recoilless rifles on it. And we're thinking, well, this is wonderful, because it's got a 50 caliber machine gun on it and stuff. And we're thinking, this is wonderful. Look at all the guys we got to help us stand watch and shit. So we're there, sitting in a hole. We're about, me and him are probably from here to the back wall of that hallway, from where the Ontoses were stopped back there. And we're thinking, like, who's going to come across this wide open, dried out rice paddies with all these 24 freaking 106 millimeter, basically cannons, these recoilless rifles, and 4 50 caliber machine guns. They ain't going to stand much of a chance. We're in pretty good shape. Well, so we were sitting there, and just about midnight, when we were going to be going off 100% watch, we hear thump, 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 thump. What the shit is that? Then all of a sudden we heard the mortars whistling in, and we're going, holy shit. They hit us with 300 rounds of mortar fire trying to hit them Ontoses with them freaking mortars. Yeah. And it was like, yeah, we thought this was a good idea. We got up the next morning when the sun came up and stuff. We had like 6 or 7 mortar rounds that hit within 5 or 6 feet of our hole. But Chico Ramirez, they come out. They had so many guys had been hit by mortars that night that they shrunk the perimeter down. Well, Chico was in another hole, but they sent him over to be in the hole with us out in front of the Ontoses. So we're going, Chico, help us out over here. We're going to dig this hole a little bigger, since you're going to be in it too. He goes, I have already dug 3 holes last night. I ain't digging another hole. He threw his shit on the ground. He said, I'm laying down right here. I ain't digging another damn hole. That's all there is to it.
You had mentioned you're a 2-time Purple Heart, so you've gotten 2 Purple Hearts, 2 different occasions. Tell me about the day of the first one.
Well, that was on that hill I was telling you about, where we took so many casualties. And it went through my flak jacket, entered here, but the bullet never really went in. It kind of went around and ended up, they cut it out back here. It was really? Just under the skin. Yeah, I'm laying there, and the corpsman comes. I'm going, Doc. tell my mother and father I love them. Tell my brother I love him. He goes, shut the hell up. It didn't hit nothing vital. You're going to be just fine. There was, like I said, there was 400 of them shooting. It was just coming from somewhere. I have no idea. It just went right through my. Of course, flak jackets then were just Kevlar. They weren't made to stop a bullet. They were just made to stop shrapnel.
Okay.
So the bullet just went right through it. I thought, of course, I looked down. I see all the blood coming out from under the jacket. I'm going, what the hell? I'm a goner.
That was your first impression?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I looked down, see all the blood. You know, I knew I could see the hole in the flak jacket on this side. I knew I'd been shot. I'm thinking, well, just a few days before that, me and a friend of mine in another area, he was a machine gunner, and we were set up in a perimeter, and we in a dried out rice paddy, and we moved out over next to the rice paddy dike. We were just going to eat some chow. We were sitting side by side, you know, like he was sitting, I was sitting here, he was sitting here, and boom, heard the snap go past me, and I looked over, and he's rolling away. Sniper shot him from over here, shot right past me, and hit him in the leg and the knee. Yeah, he's rolling away. All I could see was a mist of blood where the round had hit him.
Yeah.
So I went down and grabbed him, drug him back over to his hole. And then all I saw, he said, I took him back to his hole, and then he got my peaches and pound cake and ate them. And I'm going, why, Jonesy, why'd you do that? Why would you eat my peaches and pound cake? He said, Hancock, I needed sustenance. I said, you're going back where you're going to get everything you wanted. For Christ's sakes, I'm going to be out here in this jungle for another month.
Your second one.
We had come back off of the operation in May, and they had put us guarding. We had lost so many men that our company was deemed combat inefficient. So they put us guarding bridges along Highway 1. You know, take a squad here and guard this bridge, and squad down there and guard that bridge in these, what they call CAC units. They had groups of maybe a squad of Army or a squad of Marines or something would live in this village with these guys, and then they'd run ambushes and patrols out of this village with these guys. So we were staying in one of these CAC units, our platoon, and we went out on a platoon-size ambush. And at that time, this was in August, they had made me the platoon radio man so that I didn't have to always. I was an old guy. Mm-hmm. I went from private to corporal in 1 week.
Really?
Yeah, because we lost our NCOs.
Yeah. So
that I wouldn't have to always be going out on these ambushes and patrols and all that every day. They made me the lieutenant platoon commander's radio man. Mm-hmm. And so we went out to set up an ambush, and it was like a L-shaped ambush. But me and myself, the platoon commander, the platoon sergeant, and the platoon corpsman were rear security. So we were set out in the back along this little dirt trail that came in behind our ambush. Well, we're out there, and the our platoon commander, was on watch. And he hits me, he goes, Hancock, there's somebody coming down the trail. And sure enough, you could see these two shadows, one behind the other, coming down the trail, because it was a little bit of moonlight. It was 2 VC coming down the trail. He says, wait just a minute. When I give you the signal, we'll open up on him. So we opened up on him. We hit the one, he dropped. But the second one, he had to have a grenade in his hand. He jumped off the trail. Obviously, we didn't hit him. Next thing you know, this grenade comes flying in, and it hit all four of us. When that grenade went off, it hit the platoon sergeant the worst. It was a new guy. It wasn't this one.
Yeah.
But his throat was cut. So, and I mean, I was knocked for a loop. I was goofy, dizzy and stuff, from the concussion.
Sure.
And so I'm kind of trying to shake it off, and I'm sitting up. I've been laying down with my flak jacket over the top of me for warmth. It was a little chilly that night. And so I kind of sat up, and I'm trying to get my bearings on what the hell's going on. And I hear this gurgling, like, holy shit. And I look, and this new platoon sergeant, he's a short guy, stands up, and he takes like 2 steps towards me, and he falls down. And I'm thinking, what the shit? Well, the corpsman, he comes running over. Well, blood squirting out of this guy for about 10 feet out of his carotid artery. Mm-hmm. So the corpsman's there, and we cover him up with a poncho, and we're underneath the poncho, and the corpsman's got a light, and he's taking care of his neck, and he's going, Hancock, hold this for me. And he's got this guy's artery. Mm-hmm. He says, hold this until I find a clamp. Mm-hmm. I'm going, I'm holding this guy's artery in my fingers. Yeah. I'm about to throw up all over him. Yeah. So I held it for a while, and he got the clamp out, and he saved the guy's life. The guy lived. He lived, but it was a god-awful sound that I heard. Him gurgle. He was choking on his own blood,
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus Christ. I called the medevac in, and they came to get him. Well, in the meantime, while that medevac, we took him back inside the perimeter. They set up a perimeter then. We took him back inside the perimeter, and they were calling in we had listening posts out, 2-man listening posts out outside the perimeter that we had set up. Well, one of the, after we all got wounded, the platoon sergeant, the lieutenant, and the corpsman all got on the helicopter. They were all hit. They all were on the helicopter, and they all left. So I'm the only one there with the radio. I'm the only one there, and I'm like, well, now what the shit do I do? Well, it was just, I thought I didn't. Of course, all the crap going on when we got back here,
Yeah.
But, I felt good about what happened. I didn't. That's why I started having these reunions. Mm-hmm. Back in 1999. It was like, it's time to get everybody together and see how everybody feels. Mm-hmm. So P&G made the mistake of giving me a computer, and I used all my time getting on the internet and finding all the guys I served with.
Yeah. How did everybody feel? The guys you did serve.
They all feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reunions turned out to be a pretty good time.
Yeah. How was your homecoming? When you got back.
Well, when we first landed, we flew out of. I got out of Quezon, and they flew me to Dong Ha, and then from Dong Ha, they flew me down to Da Nang, where I turned in all my gear and had to get all my shots in order to leave and things like that. And so then they, at Da Nang, caught a flight, and it took me from there to Okinawa. And then from Okinawa, we flew back to El Toro Air Force Base. Mm-hmm. And sitting up near San Francisco. And from there, we went to San Francisco Airport, and there was a bunch of people there and protesting, of course, about everybody. They're just wonderful. And, you know, when we have our reunions now, and the most fascinating part about it is all our wives get along. They go on trips together all over the place, and you know, the girls and that stuff together, and because we always have our families at the reunions. But you'll see on that on that DVD, because they're all on there, and that when we were in Washington. But they're just wonderful, wonderful guys.
Yeah.
Wouldn't trade them for the world. Of course, now we're getting to the point, you know, we're getting to that age where we're losing some every year, a few every year.
Experience you wouldn't trade for the world?
No, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'd go with those guys again if I had to, but yeah, I wouldn't wish to do it. But yeah, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
People like Bill are truly priceless pieces of American history, few and far between. Each year, we lose more and more of our veterans, and it's imperative that we don't lose this history with them. Our goal with the channel is to immortalize their stories. I hope you enjoyed your time with Bill. Do me a favor, subscribe, like, and share Bill's story amongst your family and friends, because it's important to never forget the invaluable lessons to be learned through the stories of our veterans of war. As always, guys, thanks for watching.